Alright, video 15. This is where the action will begin, and traces are connected to hit reactions as well as interactions between the player and the AI. Since both of them are using essentially the same thing, we're gonna start with the player, and from there we're gonna move to the AI slowly. Okay, let's take a look at the attack animation we have for the player, which is this one. Now, there's a notify called trace notify. It's a notify state. So assign it wherever you want the trace to start, so somewhere right here, and then it ends right here. So just assign it between these values. Now, I'm gonna explain where to set up the traces and how in a little bit, but for now, know that I'm just gonna explain the properties that come with it. This state in particular have two things to keep in your mind. First is a trace to control, and trace to control will be whichever trace you activate. So you can have more than one trace, and let me demonstrate by showing you here. Let's open this weapon, and it has a function just like the meshes called update traces. Now traces require meshes. It can be a skeletal mesh for the player, it can be his hands or leg or a kick or whatever, or it can be any mesh that you assigned in the weapon itself. So in our case we had the protector, so let's use the protector to demonstrate. The new function was update traces, so let's use that one, and I'm not gonna call the parent. Let's take a look at this one. Now get owner, which is the player character, and then get the collision component. Collision manager, do we have that component here? Surely we do. Okay, so we can take this one, and it has a constructed trace of a class. Now I'm gonna copy this, and I'm gonna show you this class. There's two types of class. The projectile, which was used for the knife right here, and the multi-sphere trace object. Now if you open this one, take a look here. We're inheriting from a C++ to make it easier for you. There is a trace radius, a trace type. You can change it if you like. For now I'm gonna keep it at visibility. A trace gameplay tag if you wanna assign it right here. And who am I going to hit with this trace? So we have a toggle for the trace as a function. We have a tick, which does a collision trace. We'll call this function. We have a construct if you want it, and we have an onHit and few functions. Now let's take a look at the toggle. Toggle trace. We'll try to add a trace to the active traces. So you have a list of active traces. If you check here, active traces. Add a tickable object so it can tick, which will run this one. And when you toggle it off, it will do the exact opposite. If there is any hit actors, it will clear it. Now let's continue with the trace. We're setting here a trace gameplay tag. You can either do it here, or you can do it in a child of this. You can make a child here. I'm gonna do one just to demonstrate. Create a child, and I'm gonna call this regular player trace object. I'm gonna move this right here. Where did we put it? We put it right here. Don't forget to assign the class right here. Now I don't need to set up a trace gameplay tag. I'll just set it up here. So I'm gonna call this right hand. I know it's a right hand anyways. Now the trace type, it will be visibility. Do I need a debug? I'll add debug. Who's gonna get hit? Hit actor tags. Now these two values are assigned on the characters themselves. If you open the pawn, you see actor gameplay tags is called the player here. What about the AI? If you take this guy, open it, see this? AI.enemy. Now AI.enemy is still a character.ai, so this is okay. Now I don't need to hit the player, I don't need to hit myself, so I'm just gonna remove that part. Let me save. I'll rename this because this was named wrong. Here we go. Let's continue here. We don't need a gameplay tag, we said. And we need a set trace mesh info. Now if you drag from there is a set mesh trace info. And now you need to know which mesh you're trying to do your things on. It can be the player character mesh, it can be the sword mesh, it can be a shield, it can be anything. And we need a socket name. Now we don't have socket names, so let's create some. You create a make array, then go to the sword you have, or your mesh or whatever, go to the socket manager, and start adding weapon traces. So weapon trace 1, I'll duplicate this, change its name, let's add a third one, and a fourth one. I'll rename all of them, and then number 4. Now they're all in the same place, we don't want that, so let's move this a little bit. Let's go 40, 80 here, and maybe if you want go a bit far, 120. Now these 4 names, we're gonna have to put them here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And these are the 4s. Now let's go here back, and this is the trace to control. We know the tag, it's right hand at this point. And skip assigned attack property for the time being. Let's just visualize this, since we put the regular to for duration. Now see what happens if you try to attack. You see that? It already can do the traces. Now let's take a look at this one, assign attack property. Now attack property is whatever version of this attack it is about. It can be an arrow, it can be a grab attack, it can be a gunshot, it can be a heavy one, a slam down, a jump attack, a stun, a thrust, whatever you want to name it. Most of the attacks I'm using are normal with a specific direction. This is instance, by the way, so you can create any version that you want. Normal attack property. If you add variables, they will show up right there. And you can add functions or whatever. So for the time being, I'll stick with the default. So it's a swing direction from left to right. So we keep it at right. Impact properties, we're using 1, and in most of my demos I worked on, it's only 1. So you can rest assured here, if you wanna add something else you can. I'll just stick with this one since it's more general. Now we have damage application per impact. Now if you add here, this is what happens when you have a specific impact result. So how does impact result determined, and what do I need to do here? To explain this properly, I need to go here first. So say the attack hit, it already landed on something. If the attack lands, I'm gonna try to perform specific states. So first, here's state and result. If it's a state.parried, the impact result is impact.result.parry. How do I know it's parried? You will try to perform a state, and the state has a condition. All the conditions will be checked, and whichever is true, it will determine that type of result. So you try to do parried on the enemy, of course. The second one is deflect. The third one is block hit. Fourth one is a clash. The fifth and the last is a regular hit. Now, I didn't do the block hit for the player or the AI, so I know the result is gonna be hit. So let's add hit here. Now what happens if it's a hit? Damage to apply, and I'm gonna target a specific attribute, say health here in this example. I'll explain attributes in a tiny bit. After that, how much do you wanna damage the health? Say for example 10. After that, here you'll check how much do each owner, for example, this guy has attack power of 10. Now, you can add it here, attack power, which is also an attribute. And you'll take the 10, modify it somehow by a specific formula that you specify how much attack power is going to affect this 10. Now, the modification of this is handled in the damage per impact property. Now, if you open damage per impact property, which has these variables, right? Damage per impact property, you'll see here the variables that we have, the damage application which we had, and then we had a what do you call it? The variable here we had was named modified by owner attributes. So let's take a look here. Modified by owner attributes. Now take a look at this function. Set defense impact values. It takes the keys. Actually, it's not this function. Let's go and look for something else. Set attack impact values. Here, if you process an impact property at some point, so you have an array here. This array will try to run all of them. So, in this case, we're clearing the result. So the result here was this value. You see it? We don't need to specify this because it will already clear it for you. So any value you give here, it will clear it. Determine the state will also be cleared. So don't change these two. There's no point even. So you have the clear here, modified damage application value. Set attack impact values, which was the function we were in. Now, damage application per impact. We already know this one, which was the one we were looking for. Modified by owner attributes. It will be right here. Influence damage to apply. Modified by owner attributes. See that? If we go to the end, it will find the attribute assigned, and in this case it will be health. Now the health itself, we will multiply the value of it. You see that this was health. Health value, which whatever on the attributes you can change with it. So let's say attack power was 5. If attack power is 5, we will take the original value we had, which was the 10, multiply it by whatever we had, which is 5. So the result will be 50. So it won't be 10 here, it will be 50. Now the defense or the receiving end will also try to modify it if you have something in there. Now I'll go to the defense later, but for now, no, we can modify the values here. So if you don't like this formula and you want to add maybe more, or this is too much, you want to go it down, you can duplicate this, do all your stuff in this function, and reassign it back here. So this concludes the damage per impact property. This is for hit. You can create more for block, for deflect. For example, if you wanna have a stamina bar for the enemy, and every time he blocks something, he's gonna lose stamina. You can add it here, impact.result.block hit. The values would be, attribute stamina. This will be 50 or 100 or whatever, and so on. So this is damage application per impact. These two we spoke about them, they don't matter. The state and result we spoke about it, and this is the tag. Now it's more about putting this into practice. But before that, I mentioned I'm gonna explain attributes and how to assign them and so on. Now if you go to the data asset, any data asset, you will see at the very bottom, sorry, not the bottom. If you go look for it, it will depend on the type of the data asset. Now you see an attribute section here. Attribute modifiers, it's used in the sword and shield. You see a stamina bar on the top left. This is where it's used. The second one, attributes to create. And this is also instanced, so you can create as many as you like. You have health here, poise, posture. Assign health for now for the player. And let's give it a value of 100. The minimum, it will never go less than that specific value, so 0. The maximum will be 100 as well. Okay, so we have this attribute right now. How do I create a new attributes? Now if you go to here, we have attributes, duplicate, name this whatever you want. It can be magic points, it can be a level, it can be anything you want. Change this value and you'll see it right here. If you add a new one, magic points. And this is how it's done. As simple as that. So let's add also health for the enemy. And this one will be in the very bottom, I guess. Yes, almost. So we already have a health, and the value is 100. So let me save this. And now we need to implement hit reactions, because if you hit him right now, what happens? Let's take a look. Nothing. Why? Because it doesn't have any of the 5 states we showed. No block hit, no hit reaction, no parried, nothing. So in that case, nothing will be applied, no damage will be applied, no hit reaction will be applied, nothing. So let's take a look at the hit reaction for the enemy in the next video, and we'll take it from there. See you guys in the next one.